Welcome, everybody, to the Gate Expectations podcast, where I bring in a weekly guest and talk all things Yu-Gi-Oh! And get to know a little more about each person I talk to. This is episode 3, and if you haven't checked it out yet, you can check out my earlier podcast with the pen god Stephen Trifanowski and arguably one of the best players in the world, Jesse Cotton. They'll be on my channel here at Gate Guardian 44 on YouTube and several other platforms, including Facebook, Patreon, Anchor, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. So go check that out. My guest for this week has 4,000 subs on YouTube on his channel, Senior Blanco88. He's been a long-time moderator on Pojo.com, which is arguably one of the biggest Yu-Gi-Oh! Forums out there before, Zodiac Duelist and Facebook took over. 17-time regional top 8 player. It's Jeffrey Lang. Jeff, man, thanks for coming on to the show.
Yeah, man, long time no talk. It's great talking to you. Thanks for having me.
Of course, absolutely, man. You're a long-time dear friend of mine. And, a lot of people may not know who you are. You're wondering who you are, why I brought him on here. I wanted to bring on more of a legacy player, who was a big part of the game back in the day. And you've been playing this game for, how long?
2004, so 16 years.
Yeah, 2004, which is a long time. I think I started around 2003. So yeah. We've been around this game for a long time, and I know that you still play, not quite to the competitive degree that, at least that I'm on, because I like to try to play extremely competitive. I know you play more like kind of like fun decks, or just try to bring like a lower tier deck and try to top with it. I know you're still competitive in that regard. Yeah, in that regard. But, both of us, we've been around the block several times, and we've seen the game evolve into what it is today. And that was a big reason why I wanted to bring you on, because you were instrumental back then, in the old Legacy days. Yeah. And of course, we were both moderators on Pojo.com, and that was a big site. And we were on there for so long.
Yeah, I think it was upwards to 2010. I was a moderator. I was writing articles. I actually think you did a part of the middleman trading. We had a little system on Pojo where we were a middleman, and we would help two people complete a trade. So that was really cool stuff. So
yeah, we definitely did that. Sure, I was definitely part of that, just for a short time though. I used to do a lot of trading. Then I went a little bit less and less online as we went along. But yeah, I was part of the middleman trading. And you also had your own little segment on the Pojo main site, Lang's Learning Corner Center. I remember that from a while ago.
Yeah.
So let's start off with that, man. You've had over 100 articles on that thing. Over 200, I should say. What was that all about?
So I think, so first and foremost, I guess let's kind of backtrack a little bit. So, I started playing in 2004. I think I was in high school, and I just saw people playing, at the kitchen table, or not kitchen, I'm sorry, but the lunch table. And I was just like, wow, what's this? I heard of Pokemon, and I never even heard of Yu-Gi-Oh! And, it was 2004. And, I think that the game actually came out maybe in 2002. So I guess I was a little behind in the times, but kind of once I saw it, I don't know what it was, but it just drew me in. And then from there, I started watching the show, started collecting cards. And I think even at the beginning, much like a lot of players, you were playing using the anime roles, right? So it's just turn 1, drop Blue Eyes White Dragon and all that, right? So it's I was just playing very casually. And, shortly down the line, I, discovered, local shops. And then from there, I started to get my itch to kind of just learn the game a little better and get a little better at the game. And then from there, eventually then I did discover that Pojo.com. And from there, I did a lot of trading. I did a lot of, posting here and there, helping people with decks. People would help me, so on and so forth. And as, I kind of grew in popularity, I guess, a little bit. And then from there, then I started to post articles on Pojo. So, as I became, a little more known, I guess, in the world, I really aspired to try and help people out there. And, there's certainly, there's a very big world of the competitive players, but there's also a lot of casual players too. And from there, I just solely just enjoyed passing along any knowledge that I could, help whoever that I could. And, kind of the end goal, if I'm able to help someone in some way, then it was well worth it for me.
The funny thing about all this is that I have a fun little anecdote that does kind of relate to you in a sense. So first of all, you're from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
I am.
Yep. And funny enough, I actually have family in the Pittsburgh area.
Yep.
So how I got into Yu-Gi-Oh, strangely enough, like I did watch the show here and there.
Yeah.
And when I went to go visit my second cousins and my cousins out in Pittsburgh, they were into Yu-Gi-Oh at the time too. Like they had the cards. I never had the cards because back when Pokemon cards ruled the roost way back when, nobody knew how to play the game, of course. No. As you mentioned with Yu-Gi-Oh, nobody knew how to play. So I didn't want to do that with Yu-Gi-Oh. I didn't want to just collect the cards and then not play it with the right rules because if nobody knew how to play it.
Yeah.
But then once I actually played it with my cousins, and I really thoroughly enjoyed it, I'm like, okay, I got to get myself some Yu-Gi-Oh cards when I get back to Canada and play this game. Yeah, and that's what happened. And it was Pittsburgh that really helped me get into it, which is funny enough.
Yeah.
And then that's where I am now. And you're from Pittsburgh, and I've seen you in Pittsburgh, whether we've had events, we've had a couple nationals hosted there, and where I just go visit family, and then I just hit up the local card shop and saw you there. So we've seen each other inside of events, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I thought that was pretty fun little anecdote.
Yep. And it's very interesting, right? Because you're from Canada, I'm from the United States, and you would think that what are the odds that two people from two different countries would kind of meet in the same city? You have relatives, and we met up there. We already knew each other from the forums, but then once you came down to see family, that was very very cool thing. And I think on top of that, I'm sure you could talk upon this. So we actually played inside of a Kmart in a Little Caesars.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Oh,
not many people I could say they did that. Yeah.
Oh, God. The stories from that, first of all, is going to get to me. Because at that time when I went there, we have Kmart in Canada. Not anymore, though. That stopped that shut down like a while ago.
Yeah.
So
a lot of those are gone now, I think. So.
Yeah. But at that time, this was when I think this was around 2009. This is when like Black Wings were prevalent, Dark Strike Fighter was out, which was like one of the biggest cards. It was that format that happened.
Yeah.
And God, going back to Kmart just rehashed so many old memories for myself. I used to play video games all the time in Kmart because they'd always have the station. And I remember my very first match playing in a Pittsburgh local. Yeah. I was playing against this guy playing Lights, not playing Lights One. He was also playing like a dad variant as well.
Yeah.
And I actually made him not cry, but he was very close.
Yeah.
Because I pulverized him, and then he actually called his mother to take him home.
Yeah.
Because I beat him so badly. I think he was a little bit mentally disabled, so I think there was a little bit of that. But I'm like, man, I never thought I'd make a guy cry like that. I'm like, I kind of feel rotten.
Yeah, and it was nothing you personally did, but I guess a lot of people wouldn't know this, but it's like Pittsburgh was pretty competitive in Yu-Gi-Oh. I mean, we're still pretty competitive, but it's like back in the day when we had Upper Deck, right? We had all the ranking system, and I was in the top 50 in the United States, like ranking. We used to get points and all that. Maybe they did that nowadays in Konami, but I don't know. We might have had like 5 or 6 people in the top 50, and like you were at that local at the mall inside of the Kmart, but then also right up the street there was another local, and those two stores just clashed in a competitive way, but just fighting back and forth, and lots of heated arguments and crying, and it's like, but you know what, at the same time, like we always tried to push one another to be the best that we could.
Yeah, I believe that local we went to, I think it was called Phantom of the Attic.
Yeah, that's correct.
If I recall correctly.
Yep.
Yeah, that was the one that I played at when I met you the first time in Pittsburgh, at least anyway, outside of nationals.
Yeah. And
then I remember we went. I came back again for another year. I forget what year it was offhand. It was like the late 2000s. I want to say like 2010 or somewhere around that time frame. And I went to another local. I forget what this one was called though.
Yeah.
If you remember that, if you can remember that one.
Yeah, it was probably Green Tree Sports Cars.
That's right. That's the one, because it was actually a 10-minute drive away from my aunt's house where I was staying at the time, so it was really close. And honestly, that Pittsburgh trip that I took, I was just there to visit family. That's all it was. We didn't really do anything exciting. We were just there to spend time with family. So honestly, me bringing my Yu-Gi-Oh cards along and going to Green Tree was the highlight of me going there.
That's awesome.
I would just wait for like playing the locals twice there. Yeah. I think one was Wednesday and one was Saturday. I was there for a week.
Yeah. Yep.
Yes,
Yeah.
so that was
I
pretty
mean,
huge.
certainly seeing family, that's one thing, but to be able to do a hobby that you love on top of that, I mean, makes it that much better. So
It honestly made my week go by so much faster. I really wanted to go play there, and not to mention,
you
I
made
love
it
going to
seem like a
locals.
bad thing, making time go by,
Well, my family understood, considering I was pretty much at the house for the entire week, being there, just visiting family. That's all we did.
Yeah.
Just live with the family for a week. That's all we did. I think we went out once just to go get frozen yogurt, but that was it. Other than that, we didn't do any shopping or anything like that. It was weird.
Okay.
It was weird. All I did was just hang out with you guys. So for 2 days.
Yeah.
But
happy we made your trip a little more exciting
then. Definitely that. I don't think I would have wanted to go really if it weren't for being able to go play Yu-Gi-Oh! In another local, because I love playing in different locals. Because first of all, I love trading with people. That's one of the things.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I love playing.
We did it every time. Every time I saw you, we had to do a trade. So
yeah, of course. And then I just love playing different people.
Yep.
It keeps the game fresh for me. So that was a great thing for me when I came to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Actually, the first time I came. Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know if anyone even remembers this, but even in your trade binder, how many Dons of Lukes you had. So,
well, my favorite number is 44 as the end of my alias Gate Guardian 44. So that's why I decided to collect 44 Dons of Lukes at the time, because he was one of my favorite cards. So is Gate Guardian. And I have 40 ultra rare Pharaonic Guardian Dons of Lukes. I have two ultra rare Japanese ones. Okay. One super Japanese Dons of Luke, and I also have a parallel rare Dons of Luke.
Okay.
Yeah, so
that's awesome.
I've had that collection for so long. I think since 2006, I believe, is when I completed that collection. Yeah. And for anyone that asks, I also do have 44 Gate Guardians as well to match my name. Not all of them are secret. I think about 5 or 6 of them are rares, and the rest are secret or ultra. I'll put that collection. I'll just put that collection online just to show everybody. Yeah. It's a fun little collection.
I'll tell you what, though. Speaking of that, I mean, it's really something how high some of these cards are spiking. All these old nostalgic cards. I mean, the game's been out 18 years. I think Legend of Blue Eyes came out in 2002, but just some of these cards are really spiking in value. So that's just something, and it's like I'm kind of kicking myself. I didn't keep some cards over the years. So.
Well, I mean, we were both around during the 5D era, which was when the Ghost Rares started coming out, and all of a sudden now they're spiking in price, and it's crazy how many people are after these cards. And to think how many Ghost Rares have I gone through, like, back and forth playing this game, and now all of a sudden it's like, man, if I'd have just held on to those, just think of how much more valuable my collection could have been.
And speaking of that, right, like you look at a Ghost Rare and it's just like, oh, that looks really cool. And it's like, yeah, they'll never stop making those. Well, guess what? They did.
They did.
That's kind of why they spiked. So
I remember during the Lightsworn format, where Honest was one of the Ghost Rares, people actually preferred the Secret Rare over the Ghost Rare because, first of all, Secret Rare, for some reason, and this is just me going off my anecdotal experience, that Secret Rares were more difficult to get than the Ghost Rares for Honest. And the Honest would also reflect some light. So if you had it in your hand and some light hit it, your opponent will be able to tell it that you've got an Honest in your hand. And that was one of the biggest traps that Lightsworn would have back in the day. So people would want the Secret Rares to prevent that from happening.
Yeah. Yeah, but even like really cool like misprints, like back in the day, that Rainbow Dragon that was, I believe, Rainbow Neos had the name, or like vice versa. Like, I mean, I don't even know how much that is nowadays, but I feel like I had probably a handful because I was really big into buying and selling, and that's actually what I did for a living while I was at school. So I did not have a regular job, so I went through a lot of cards, and now I'm kind of looking back and it's like, yeah, that money helped me back then for school and all that, but it's like it could be worth so much more right now.
I remember when I first moved out of my house, I actually paid the first 2 months of my rent by selling Yu-Gi-Oh cards. So it's definitely played a vital role in my life. Yeah, it's a great feeling. I think Super Vukroid Stealth Union was also one of those other weirdly misprinted cards. I wasn't a Ghost Rare, but I think it was along those lines.
Yeah.
It's crazy to see all these cards now back in the 5Ds era, where a lot of listeners right now, a lot of players may not have been able to playing in that era.
Yep.
just kind of see all these cards go, and we've seen this game evolve right from from its bare basics up until now, where we're seeing first turn boards going absolutely crazy, and I'm thinking, wow, this game is a lot different from what it was before, and
yeah, it's certainly something, because like when you'll hear of like kind of jokes that people make up, like on Dueling Book, like people will be like, oh, no exceeds, no link summons, no this, no that. And it's just like, it's kind of funny in a way, but then also at the same time, it's like, that's kind of just the game that I remember, just bare bone basics where you could, kind of use different strategies. And if you really put some time into it, you could do well. And now, kind of nowadays, I don't think it's really there, but it's kind of something I think is lacking. But it is what it is, I guess. So,
there's an argument that I keep seeing getting floating around comparing Yu-Gi-Oh from what it was before than what it was now, is that it does take away a bit of creative playing as far as things go. Like nowadays, we have an optimum combo for this deck.
Yep.
Get to it. That's what you have to do.
Yeah.
Before in Yu-Gi-Oh, when we played different decks, it was we were deciding, do I want to set 2 back row, 3 back row? I don't know. Around, you didn't want to commit to the board too much, and like, do I just want to set a monster? Maybe not set any traps, just try to lure them in. It would encourage different play styles, and it would encourage like a lot more like unique playability in the decks. Nowadays, it's just let's just build the combo, see if it can get broken, and go from there.
Yeah, 2 totally different games. I mean, back in the day, and it's just, it's the land I'm from, and that's when, I played it the most competitively. But it's just like, just as 1-for-1 trade-offs, like playing Smashing Ground, summon Spirit Reaper, attack, nail a card. Like, that's just something you don't see nowadays. And it's just a whole different play style and way of thinking. So,
yeah, because nowadays, one card can turn into a potential +4, +5. Where back then, like one card, like you have to make it last as much as you can to really get its full value out of it.
Yeah. And like nowadays, like with all the negations, and it's like at first when I read evenly matched, just to use for an example, I'm just like, did I really read that correctly? Does that card really do that? And you can wipe that many cards off the field? Like, that's just crazy.
I find it strangely balanced right now, just because of how many negates can pop on the board nowadays. It's like, okay, well, it's just another card to negate, I suppose.
Evil, and I kind of always thought that about Max C, which that's that's always a hot topic to talk about. But it's just like, with all these decks nowadays, like all these links, link climbing and dropping all these negates and all that, I often wonder if Max C is a needed card or not. But
that's always the argument here, if people want Maxi or don't want Maxi. I've seen arguments for both sides, and I'm on the board with Maxi right now just because I've played with it, and I've been around it. It's like, and it really limits the plays that you can do when you're under Maxi. It's like, do you want to go hard or do you not want to go hard? But at the same time, it kind of shows a bit of restraint being able to play under those kind of floodgates. And that's, I think, a skill that I've learned over time, being a legacy player. And like, I'll give you an example. Like when we had the event Yu-Gi-Oh Day, I'm sure you're familiar with that. The Yu-Gi-Oh Days event. Some of them would just be structure deck duels. And that's where it would turn the game. It would rewind the game back to more of like a caveman, or not. I don't want to say remedial state, but a much more slower paced game. And so many players that I played with at my own locals wouldn't know how to play those kinds of decks. Because they're so used to let's just fire off a combo and let's just see if I just hope my opponent can't stop me. With this, it's like, no, you now actually have to adapt an actual play style and play accordingly, like read your opponent and then go from there. It's a huge chess game. And that's something that I feel like you and I have been like thoroughly immersed in growing up with this game, and we've just kind of seen it kind of divulge into just combo splashing. Not to say that it's a chess game in itself in the newer formats. I'll get to that shortly. But I bet that you kind of had that feeling too, going from maybe like playing like today's meta and then rewinding back a little bit if you played a structured deck duel.
Oh yeah, completely different. So whole different line of thinking and your plays and whatnot. So,
and it's it's amazing just seeing like the newer players just kind of try to adapt to that system because I've exposed them a lot.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of people just, commit to the board so much, put all the resources on the field. I'm like, you can't do that.
Yeah.
You really can't do that in older formats.
Yeah.
You will get punished hard.
Yeah.
And I remember when Heavy Storm got banned, people thought, "Oh, we can set all our cards down." No, Black Rose Dragon was also a card, and you got to be foolish if you want to keep playing like that.
Yeah, I think it's certainly cool that if someone has been playing since the beginning, or at least the previous era, right? You kind of see the game evolve, and you kind of just respect the game for what it was back then. But I'm not so sure, like today's players, if they kind of just got into the game when they're link summoning, right? Like I don't know if they would appreciate kind of the old formats and the old decks and play styles and all that. And it's kind of a forgotten art because I think you can agree, like people are really into like GOAT formats. I mean, personally, I didn't really like that format, but that was kind of a big one. But people kind of play Dragon Rollers like Teledad, here and there. But it's like all these past formats or like past like play styles, even like Yu-Gi-Oh tried to do like drafting, and it's like I don't know what it was, but it's like people kind of just don't look to the past or alternate ways, I guess, as much.
Yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh formats in this game outside of Advanced haven't really taken off so well. I mean, I enjoy a good battle pack duel. I love those things. I love those little drafts. But compared to like Magic the Gathering, which is an excellent game for drafting, Yu-Gi-Oh doesn't seem to have the same luster because there are so many cards in this game that are reliant on so many other cards, and then not all of those cards are really existing in what you get. So it's really hard to build any kind of synergy at all when you do like these battle packs or even just like sealed drafts.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, so like Yu-Gi-Oh now, it's had the advanced format for I don't know how long now. I mean, you originally just started with one format, then you broke off and had advanced and traditional. Then you had battle pack, which that really didn't take off. Speed Duel is still out right now. I don't know how well that's doing. But Duel Links is definitely huge, and I think that's because it's a portable mobile game, and that seems to probably be their second most popular thing behind advanced format, or maybe even bigger than advanced. But it's like I never once have heard someone really talk about traditional format, speed duel, any of that. So I don't know what it is, but all these like alternative plays for play styles for the most part, they kind of just don't see love. So it's kind of shame, but I don't know.
Well, it's kind of the future of Yu-Gi-Oh too. It's mobile gaming as well. That's a big thing right now. So being able to release like some form of Yu-Gi-Oh on their mobile phone is definitely something that people would love to get into. And this is one of the things that we've actually seen take off, at least on the World Championship stage. We've seen like Speed Duel World Championships happen, and we haven't seen any other format like that before. I mean, we've had video games championships. We've had those World Championships, which I thought was cool. I love those, and I played almost every single World Championship Yu-Gi-Oh game that's come out. I love it. I think it's actually a great form of training. Honest to God.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I love playing those video games, but
for sure.
Yeah, we don't really see a lot of alternative formats in Yu-Gi-Oh that really take off and do well. But I would argue that GOAT format right now is probably the most popular one that isn't like recognized by Konami.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. One thing I was always curious on, I mean, I'm sure it's, something legal, but I always wondered why Konami, couldn't have, side, old formats, I guess, like for side events and whatnot at YCS and all that. So it would just be something really cool. And like, even for like, Speed Duels that's out now, I don't know how well that's doing, but, Speed Duels essentially is Duel Links, but also in the same way, I think that'll be as close to the old school Yu-Gi-Oh that we'll ever get. So
it is
play style of it.
Yeah, because it is fairly simplified, like call it Yu-Gi-Oh! Light, if you will. But it also has its own like strategy in itself too, like some different strategies that you would never ever try in the actual game itself. I'm seeing decks in that regard being like top tier decks, like Amazon. This is one of the big ones that was out in Speed Duels in the early going. Like Blue Eyes was big there. I think Subterra's even does really well in that format. And then but but maybe some of the decks that you would see in Duel Links maybe not quite equate as well into current Yu-Gi-Oh! Like Amazoness right now, that's never been competitive at all.
Yeah, I don't remember that in regular advanced format ever.
No, not at all. No, I
Yeah.
haven't seen that at all.
But that's what makes that cool, right? Like you see cards or decks, and it's like normally they wouldn't be able to see the light of day, but now they have a chance to, maybe compete elsewhere. So,
and I see this a lot too with a lot of Facebook groups that run their own little Yu-Gi-Oh tournaments. They have these rogue tournaments where they say like you can't have these meta decks here. And then go ahead and see who wins, and you win this prize. Like I see that a lot happening nowadays, which is kind of cool for creativity, but it's something I don't see like Konami really embrace or anything like that. And I think they could really support like a good goat format. I don't know why that is. That's something I would really love to get the bottom to get bottom of the barrel to. Jeez.
I think I've kind of read this somewhere, and it kind of makes sense. But it's like when you compare competitive players to like casual players or people that just buy packs. I mean, I would say that there's more players that are casual, right? So it's like if you could find a way to pull those players in. I mean, even doing a comparison, like back in the day with Shonen Jump days, which a lot of you listening to this wouldn't even know what that is. But it's like, we had like 200-300 person tournaments, and we thought that was big. And it's like the people that topped, you knew everyone. They all kept topping over and over and all that. But it's like nowadays, what was the biggest event ever? Like 4,000 in LA? Like that is absolutely madness.
Yeah, I think it was in Anaheim. I think that happened. Which was crazy number.
Yeah.
Jeez.
But like even at that, like I've seen the game progress. I've seen the game grow. But it's like even at that, it's just like, what about those random people walking in the Target? Or what about those random people walking into a card shop? Do they know about these tournaments? I mean, I think that, if you could find a way to reach out to them, maybe give them a certain, format or something. Like, I totally get, like, with the plays you see nowadays, with Emancipators and Eldritch and all that, and just all these decks that just tee off. It's just like, that may not be very fun for someone to play in that, but just the casual world of it. And it's kind of funny me saying that because I kind of went from being a casual, just a little kid, right? I got really competitive into it. I topped a whole lot, and then from there, then kind of just as I started to grow away from the game a little bit, like I'll still go to events like in my neighborhood, but it's like I'm having fun more now. So it's kind of like I did a whole 180 on how I used to think on things, but yeah.
And I've seen the transition of when Upper Deck used to distribute the cards and kind of be in charge of the game, and then Konami took over after that huge lawsuit that happened way back when. Like when Konami decided to make the game more friendly towards newer players. Like before in Upper Deck, it used to be the better that you did at a tournament, the more packs you would get at the end of the day. So it wouldn't encourage people. So it would discourage people from going 0-2 drop.
Yeah.
Nowadays, it's every person gets packs. Yep. I think they've made the game a lot easier now to be good at, because it took me 2 years before I actually got competent in the game, just competent. But nowadays, I've seen people who've joined the game, and then 1 year later, they've been able to give me really good duels. So I think like the game's also gotten easier as well. And not to mention, when you make a game easier, then that means, the professional players have a harder time being able to retain that spot because the game's so much easier now. You're getting more competition in. It's supposed to be that refreshing change of pace kind of thing. It's like you don't want to see like John Cena in the WWE be champion for like 2-3 years. You want to mix it up.
Yeah.
And it's kind of that same logic as what you see here in Konami. You want to see newer players. And now that I see a lot of like YCS champions, half of them like, I don't even know who this guy is. Who is this guy?
Yeah, I don't know a lot of players, but I mean that just kind of goes to show that back in the day, those few hundred people, tournaments, like you knew pretty much everyone, right? But then it's like, nowadays, I even think like one really good thing, because I mean I'm all for like growing the game and growing different things within the game. I think when they changed from having $20 entry, right, and then people that topped or placed high got stuff, but now you spend $20 and now you get 5 packs. I think that in itself pulled a lot of people into the game.
Yeah, because it's encouraging even like the casual
You
players
got
that,
some for
we'll
your
get something.
money's worth. Yeah,
Yeah.
just have your fun and all that. But then it's like those people probably thought like, oh, I'm gonna go there. I'm gonna get wiped out. Like I'm gonna get O2 drop or something with some low end deck or something. But I just think that was a really positive step. So.
Yeah, and I'm with you on that. I think doing that kind of prizing definitely appeals to the casual players that just want to go in and just strictly just have fun. And
Yep.
I've seen numbers grow over the years. I usually play a lot of Toronto regionals, and it wasn't until December was the very first time that we went from 8 rounds to 9 rounds because of the attendance that we've had. And ever since then, for a consistent 8 years, we've seen 9-round regionals now in Toronto. We've seen a lot more players occur.
Yep.
So I don't know how it is for your area down in Pennsylvania. I mean, please tell me if you've noticed anything like that.
I'd say in Pittsburgh it was always like 7 or 8 rounds. I mean, I think like at the most on a really good day we'd have like 250, which is fine. But it's Columbus, Ohio's 3 hours away from me, so I typically go to all those regionals. And even back then, like I was topping Columbus regionals, Pittsburgh regionals, and came close to topping some Shannon jumps and all that. But we'll get to that here in a minute. But even for the Columbus, I think Columbus had a really big growth, and that they get a lot of love from Konami. They've had nationals a couple of times now, and I think Columbus regionals went from maybe 7 rounds to maybe like 8, 9, maybe some have even been 10. There was like 400 people, so they've really had some growth.
And I know that California is absolutely booming with a player base. I think they have around like 10-round regionals, which is absolutely insane for just a regional. I mean, just topping one of those almost feels like you're topping a YCS in itself too.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's a YCS junior or like mini.
It really is. And we've seen numbers like them even just go bigger than YCSs or Shonen Jump Championships, what they were previously called before, here in Canada, because we do get a bit of a lower number because we don't attract as many Americans to come to Canada and play. I mean, we still get some, but we don't attract as many as opposed to, a lot of Northeastern American events. You'd attract a lot of the Canadian crowd to come down there, like Columbus, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Providence. Those are like big places where you see a lot of Canadians come to as well, because we can go there about roughly 8 hours to drive, and 8 hours is nothing to a Canadian as far as driving to an event in the States for. That's nothing.
Canada's huge, so I definitely get that. So
and then that's where majority of Canada is populated is around like the Ontario region. So that's for everyone in the US that's kind of watching this. That's in the northeastern end of America. So you're looking around like the Michigan area, the New York area, Ohio, around that. Even Vermont, if you go a little bit east of that. But centralized in that area is where most of the Canadian players will go, because we border in very well into the United States that way. And then, there's a lot of metropolises in that area.
So you're more so on the eastern part of Canada. So where would people go on the western part of Canada?
On the western side, so we have like this area in Canada where we call the Maritimes. So that's like kind of like central Canada. We don't get a lot of that. So a lot more people you'd see on the western side would be closer to the Pacific Northwest end. So like where Seattle is.
Okay.
That's where you would see a lot of Canadians there too. So that area, Vancouver, is probably one of the most biggest cities in that end of town.
Okay.
So that end of the country. So around that area. But even then, you don't see a lot of events happen in the Pacific Northwest. You're seeing a lot of them either in the Northeast to help cater to Canadians, a lot in the Southwest, because Konami is located in El Segundo, California. So you're going to see it around that area a bunch. You do see some in this southeast end and near like the Texas area as well. But I don't hear a whole lot happening in the Pacific Northwest.
Okay.
In the Seattle, Oregon, that.
And Detroit's a very big city for you guys too, because I remember I used to go to regionals, and then there was Shonen Jumps there and all that, and there would be a bunch of people flocking, across the lakes up there. So
yeah, because Detroit and Toronto is roughly about a 4-hour drive in there. So that's That's not hard at all because
Yeah.
there's the Canadian city that borders Detroit is called Windsor. They're attached at the hip. It's like Niagara Falls. Like there's a Niagara Falls in Canada, Niagara Falls in America. They're attached to the hip. It's kind of like Windsor and Detroit in that end. So that's why you see a lot of Canadian representatives at the One Nationals that we had in Detroit.
Yep.
Which, funny enough, I think that was when they declared bankruptcy like a week before, like the whole city did. And yet we have a Nationals in Detroit. I don't know if you remember that or not.
I don't think I do. No.
No? Oh,
No.
God. I found it weird because I'm out in downtown Detroit in 3-4 o'clock. I'm like, so many businesses are closed.
Yeah.
And I was taking a 2-block walk just to go to White Castle because we don't have that in Canada.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to try that out.
I'll tell you what. I mean, this is just a random thought, but it's like, I don't even know how to even like word this, but it's just like Konami really has a way of like some location that they have an event like set up for, like something seems to happen there. Like the 1 year there was a YCS in Dallas, and like a week before there was like the first case of like Ebola. And then like Nats was supposed to be, I think, in Minnesota this year, and then like you had the riots and all that stuff going on, and that's just one thing I always noticed. That was quite random, but
I could have sworn there was something like that in Europe as well. There was a YCS, and I think there were riots happening out there, and this was probably within the last 2-3 years that it happened. I don't know if you recall anything like that or not.
I think there was something like that, yeah.
I can't remember what it was offhand, but I remember something happening along those lines. Yeah, and it's so weird now within today's political climate that we were supposed to have Worlds in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and all of a sudden Minnesota becomes the centralized location for this Black Lives Matter movement, which I'm not going to get into. This is not what the show is about.
Yes,
but but it's absolutely weird that we kind of seen these like weird little coincidental things happen for Yu-Gi-Oh, but wonder, like, are Konami time travelers or something? Are they predicting these kind of things happening?
And then the other kind of weird one. So I think it was YCS Rio. I think that was the 300th event. It was some only in March, and I think
like a milestone.
Yeah, it was some sort of milestone, maybe 250 or 300. I don't know how many YCSs we're up to, but I read somewhere that a bunch of people traveled there, like Americans, whatnot, other countries, and they went there, they landed, and on Friday they were told that the country closed because of
and
something
I had
along those lines.
Yeah, I had that conversation last podcast with Jesse Cotton, and that's exactly what happened to him. He was going to the 225th. That's what it was.
Okay.
In Rio de Janeiro, and all of a sudden it didn't happen because of the pandemic that's been happening. So he just spent a week there, I believe, just doing his own thing. But what a horrible thing for you to go travel halfway across the world, only to be told that the reason that you're going there, no, not happening, and you've already bought your ticket and you're already there. It's like, oh,
I mean, I guess that's the reason you're going to play the hobby that you love, but at least you're in another country, but then again, I don't even know what all was open there at that time. But
that's also a thing.
I feel bad for my Yu-Gi-Oh though. It just seems like there's some bad luck, and even nowadays, it's just like how are we going to play in the future, with all this? So
I haven't played a single online duel. I typically don't online duel to begin with.
Yeah.
But I haven't played a single game ever since the whole entire world went into lockdown with the epidemic that's happening. And it's been about 3-4 months now since everyone's been quarantined, and the meta has changed all of a sudden. And I am so out of the loop.
Yep.
Like, I don't know how to play any of this, to play any of these new decks right now. I don't know how to play Adamant Spader. I don't know how to play Eldritch.
Yeah.
I know. I don't know what the big decks are, like how to play any of them right now. Like I know Striker and Dino are around.
Yep.
But
and
I don't know what to do.
I'll tell you what though. I mean, that's really cool that you have these companies, hosting these online tournaments. That's really cool. Just trying to keep some going. And then even Konami tried to do the webcam dueling, or however you want to talk about that. But one of the things I was telling you on Facebook, I just find that crazy that when I grew up playing, we had something called YVD. Like you had to download the program, had to download the images, and then you had to use like an IP address, I think, to connect to your opponent. And nowadays, you can just play like nothing.
Yeah, we've seen this evolve, and it was a
Big evolution.
Yu-Gi-Oh Virtual Desktop, I believe it's what it stood for.
Yeah,
And that was like our way of playing online. Then I mean sometimes I would play with either MSN or AIM, if that instant messaging service.
Yep.
Way back then, I only got like no Canadians had AIM. I only got AIM specifically so I can contact all my American friends.
Oh, okay.
That's what I had it for.
Okay.
And I'd actually be able to duel with that.
Yeah.
But nowadays you couldn't even duel like that with text because there's so many moves that you would have to make in the first turn. It's like, oh, Jesus, I couldn't follow along with it. At least before I could just say, set 2 back row, set monster pass. I could type that out. That would be my turn. That's it. Nowadays, I would probably be reading an of text before I'd be able to make my first turn, assuming I have like no hand traps to stop them first turn. I'd be like, it's crazy. Imagine trying to do that. And I remember there was a joke on Pojo that I used to see a while ago, and the joke was, I'm actually dueling people by snail mail. I get to enter my battle phase next week. I'm so excited.
Yep.
That was a funny little joke. I mean, imagine playing like that. That would be crazy. But but it's just kind of the way things are now. Like you have to be able to play in like in a fast-paced like online environment to be able to play to handle Yu-Gi-Oh the way it is now.
Yeah, and even nowadays, like even like definitely the last ban list, but even like the one before that, right? That's kind of when we went into lockdown and we were kind of thinking, there may not be any progression to the game. Well, because of these online tournaments, right? And we're seeing that there's that new FTK around now, and it's like the game has evolved, and that's just really cool that people are trying to push the game still, even though we're in some unfortunate circumstances. So
and some people are just are feeding into it because they just want some semblance, and at least in Yu-Gi-Oh, like for example, like both of us are big sports fans. And we had barely had any sports to watch for the past 3 months now. Now the world started to open up a little bit. We're starting to get some sports back, but it's kind of the same thing here with Yu-Gi-Oh. Like people just want to watch some Yu-Gi-Oh. People want to be able to play it, so they're just reaching out to whatever these outlets are happening. And like good on the other people, whoever are running these tournaments, to actually host these kind of events and do them. But it's just a way for us to be able to feed into what we've been wanting for like the past couple of months, because again, I haven't played a single game of Yu-Gi-Oh aside from my video games.
And for you and I, right, like one of our favorite sports is wrestling, and that's been one of the only sports that people have been able to watch for the last few months. That's pretty cool that I had something, and then on the side here and there, I'll watch some Yu-Gi-Oh streams. So getting by.
And being able to watch some of this wrestling. I haven't watched a whole lot of wrestling in the past like 5 years lately, but I've noticed some, like I've watched like clips here and there of like wrestling today, and I would at least watch like the 2 big pay-per-views, Royal Rumble and WrestleMania. And being a professional wrestler myself, it's weird playing host to small crowds. It just feels weird. Like I performed in front of big crowds. I performed in front of like really small crowds. And obviously I love big crowds, of course. That's me. And it's so much different watching WWE online with these small crowds. So you don't really get that big response, or it's not as big. But then again, I've had crowds of like 20, 30 people that could absolutely be loud, rowdy, and you just need a good group of people to be able to do that. But it's just not the same with watching sports nowadays with these big crowds. But I guess we're starting to get a little off track here now. But nonetheless, when you look at these Yu-Gi-Oh players, like they just want something. Give them something. Like because nowadays, like we've started to evolve now into watching Yu-Gi-Oh streams online. Like this is something Konami adopted, about like 7-8 years ago, which finally, thank God they did it. Even though I really enjoyed watching like written coverage out way back in the day when metagame.com was still around. That was fun to watch. I loved going through that coverage. Jason Grabermeyer did a fantastic job doing metagame.com. Like props out to that guy.
He was a mod with us as well. So
he was also a moderator with us too. He's a very private person. So I actually asked him if he wanted to come onto this podcast. He politely rejected me, but that's fine. I know it. He's a very private person. I know he doesn't usually do this kind of thing, but fantastic guy. And he did a wonderful job with metagame.com. I had so much fun going on the forums and just talking about the matches that happen. I'd read them, watch them. It wouldn't be this long string of paragraphs that I have to do of one person doing their duel that nowadays that you see.
Yeah.
It would be like I'm watching an actual chess match happening. Yep. It's so fun. And I love going, like, interacting with everybody that was on there on the forums, talking about these plays, talking about who won, who lost. It was great to see it. I love doing it. And I'm sure you were on the forums too, just kind of going through thread by thread.
Yeah.
And post by post of these things.
Yeah. Even doing that comparison, right? Like, nowadays, right, you have instant results or instant information. People are in Facebook groups and you're going to know instantly what's going on. And I feel like they're definitely even better on the Konami website with posting updates, right? But it's like back then, right? Like we were always going through the forums. We were always hitting that F5 on a thread and seeing if it was updates, looking at metagame, waiting for new deck profiles. And then we saw images of people and all that, and like just a whole, different ball game.
Yeah, well, nowadays you see a lot more people are on staff now for Konami working these events, where back when it was just metagame.com, it was just Jason working. He was the only one. He single-handedly did everything.
Yeah.
It was fantastic. And I also helped him out on a couple of events as well. Shonen Jump Columbus, that was the first event that I helped him out at. I helped him out at Philly as well. Yep. Started writing for him afterwards. But yeah, majority of the time it was him doing it, and just me actually watching him do it all was nothing short of awesome and phenomenal, that he was able to single-handedly do this. Like, again, props to that guy.
It was unreal.
Yeah, it was. And I know he doesn't do as much nowadays.
Yeah.
Like I've seen Doug Zeef do it. I don't even know who does it right now. Aside from, if it even happens, I just see a lot of live streaming happen nowadays.
Yeah, it's kind of the new age, but I think even back then with metagame.com, like Shonen Jump days, those events would go on till like midnight, 1 a.m. So it's like you'd have to really be on late to get the update.
Yeah, because we never had day 2 of Swiss. They always tried to complete Swiss all in one day. Time rules, of course, were different.
We didn't even have that yet. We didn't even have the 5-turn roll, which even that's a few years old now. And now it's just time's called, and you stop. Drop everything and whatever the results are, whoever's up, games, life, whatever. So,
well, I think it was when time was called way back when, at least in the Upper Deck days, it was just 2 turns each after the end of the turn.
There were time, or there were turns.
Yeah, yeah, there were turns. There was time.
I'm trying to think of why the events lasted till 12 or 1 then.
Oh yeah, well,
that's kind of why I was thinking, like, there couldn't have been rolls.
Well, there was no time limit after time was called. So I've had rounds where we've had to wait an extra 40 minutes just for the end of match procedure to happen with things. And then not to mention the number of people that are playing in these events. You have to be able to once they're finished, you got to be able to get them back recorded in, especially with big events. It's a huge like cluster.
Yep.
Like I don't want to curse that word on the street on the podcast here, but it's one of those things. I mean, it's easy to maintain like a tournament of 20 people. It's easy to get results in fast, but if you're getting a tournament in, like results in for like 500, 600 people, it's considerably a lot more time. And this is me as a player and a judge's standpoint, like point of view.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, it's kind of weird right now. I mean, just something how I feel personally. And I'm sure like people have been, screwed over by these new roles, right? Just time being called, whoever's up in life or games, right? But it's kind of weird because nowadays, right, like a lot of the decks, they just take like 5-10 minutes to like pop off, do their combo. And it's kind of unfortunate, with the time rolling, it's kind of, so
every single player that I have talked to is not in favor of the current time rules.
Yeah.
And myself included.
Yep.
So, but
I mean, you just got to play different. You got to play quicker, right? But it's just like, I mean, that's really all you can do. But it's like if your opponent sets up a board or like they find a way to like, gain life or lose life or something. And it's like, some people could use that to their advantage, and then they know time is going to get called. So,
and now we're seeing like new strategies come into play. You're seeing people strategically scoop.
Yep.
Now, like you're scooping because you don't want to waste so much time.
Yeah.
And you want to be able to get in
left for another game. Yep.
Yeah, you want to have time for another game. You see that now.
Yeah.
you're seeing players just, I don't know, maybe try to speed up a little bit in their plays, just that way they can't get themselves in time. Or maybe they'll play decks that are designed to maybe just combo quickly, just so you don't have to run into that problem. And those things happen. Like, I've done that before too. If I see the clock, it's about 5 minutes left, and I know I'm gonna get beat here, I might wait it down to about roughly 4 minutes or around 3 minutes. I'll take the scoop, then I'll play, and then I'll strategically either make them go first, so that way when time is about to hit, it's going to be my turn, and I get to get the first deal in life points, assuming they can't burn me on or gain life points at the first turn. That's starting to come into effect now. Like, that little strategy that's being worked in.
Yeah. Or even like a couple of formats ago, right? Like, if you were getting close to time, right, and you were remaining like solemn judgments, like, you'd probably want to scoop up your cards, pull out any cards that are like going to lose you life, like, whole different way of thinking, I guess.
Yeah, and that was absolutely a strategy I employed. Even way back when, if I knew that I was going to go to game 3, I'm like, okay, I'm signing out all my cards that I'm going to take life points out. No warnings, no judgments. Kicking out Upstart Goblin, those, and it made siding easier. Which was nice on that regard. But yeah, there was just little things like that would make all the difference. And with these new time rules, again, I'm sure the judges love it. I mean, when I went judging, I love the time rule as a judge because it makes the day go by faster. But also at the same time now, judges get paid by the hour, so you're making less money now. You make less of what you earned before with these new end of time procedures, which I always thought was a reason why Konami decided to implement these new time rules. Was one, to save them overhead because now they have to pay their judges. And then two, they just don't want to hang around that long. I mean, again, it's tolling either as a player, a judge, or even as a vendor to be in a hall for 12 to 14 hours a day, working all the time with very minimal breaks. It's tolling. It's absolutely taxing.
I
don't know
think
if you've ever done
also,
before.
I think also, like, right now, I mean, Yu-Gi-Oh! By no means is easy to play. I mean, you can just pick up a deck and play casually, right? But if you want to play competitive, right, you have to have a general idea of, what you're doing and all of that. But it's like, I kind of feel like also sometimes with these time rolls, like, I'm sure a lot of people would be like, oh, if I had one more turn or if I had a few more minutes, I could finish off my combo and all that, or, people screw things up. So, I guess that kind of, you can strive to be better. But also it's kind of unfortunate, I guess, that all these decks like try and, pop off and take up like 10 minutes. And, that's kind of the unfortunate part about it. I mean, I wish that would kind of go away, but it's like, the game has advanced so far. I mean, 18 years, I think it's been. I want to say Legend of Blue Eyes was 02. So that's why I want to keep saying like it was 18 years. But it's like we have such a large card pool now. I mean, I think no matter what kind of cards like you hit, you're always going to have some sort of deck that can like combo off. So that kind of may be kind of a recurring issue, I guess.
Yeah, and I feel that's what happened to the game now. It's that we're so far into the rabbit hole now. It's really hard to dig ourselves out without like a huge shakeup or a huge change in the game that we have to play these games by turn 1, and usually games are decided at the third turn. On average, it's usually the third or fourth turn that we're going to see games usually completed at this point in time, because it's can you break my board? If not, we're going to the next game, and that's what it is. And Jesse Cotton said to me last week, the game is actually, it's not fun to watch anymore, because you're just simply watching one person combo off, and you're just seeing if somebody can just break it, and if not, then that's it. We're going to the next game.
Yeah, that's it. Don't waste any more time. It's also kind of weird because decks are using a lot of hand traps, right? And it's like, for a while I was really against that. Like, the first hand traps to go out or release were Effect Veiler, Maxi, and I was like, okay, those are okay, because like back then it's like Veiler just stop an effect, right? Cool, fine. But then it's like Maxi, right? Like we were talking about that before. It's just like people had to decide: are you going to continue to pop off, or are you just going to end? And a lot of people would just stop because just the card pool we had at the time, you had to think about that. But now it's like today, it's like someone drops a hand trap on you. It's like, well, do you have called by? No? Okay, well, I'm just going to, stop you. Or that's what I mean. Like, some of these cards are like necessary evils, but it's just a whole different kind of a feeling, and it's like, if you let your opponent build a board and you don't have that one out or something, then, scoop them up.
Yeah, and that's also a big thing too. Just having hand traps in your opening hand and having enough of them to be able to disrupt your opponent first turn. I mean that's the luck factor of this game as well. And then hoping that they don't have Call by the Grave on top of that, which can be really menacing.
Yep.
I remember one of the first hand traps, and I'm using this in quotation when I say this, that came out. Gores. Gores was such a menacing card when I first heard about it and when it first came out, because if you saw somebody have no back rows,
Yep.
at least at that point in time, I could say, all right, I've got game.
Yep.
You can, but now you can't make that assumption anymore in today's Yu-Gi-Oh climate. If just because someone's got a clear board doesn't mean okay, game's not necessarily over. I might have something in my hand now to stop you. And Gores really changed the game on that format. It's like, okay, I can't guarantee a game anymore now, because what if he has this? What if he has that? I'm not sure anymore.
Yeah, and people wouldn't think of it as like a big thing nowadays, I feel like. But, when you drop Gores, you got the token. And it's like if you had a board full of monsters, you would attack with the smaller guys first and the big guy last that way, because they'll typically save the Gores for the big guy if they can. That way they get a bigger token. And, but yeah, I mean, back then, like, Tragodia, Gores, those probably even came out before Valor, or maybe at the same time or something like that. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of what we were talking about, whole different like feeling. And it's like the fear of God put in you or something, because it was a fun awesome, but it's like it hurt when they were dropped on you.
Yeah, at least when Gores was out, it was the only card you had to worry about. But nowadays we have so many hand traps that exist. You have to worry about so many things. Like, thankfully, there's that neutralizer in Call by the Grave to kind of rectify that. But then again, we don't have like designator, no designator that crossout that would stop infinite impermanence right now that's out. So if you have an infinite impermanence, really hard to stop that right now in today's format, at least on the first turn anyway. So, back then we only had to worry about one trap. Nowadays we got to worry about 4, 5, 6, and some people are running 3 copies of each. So it can be really menacing as a first turn player going against someone playing with so many hand traps. I mean, I played 15 hand traps when I was playing Salomon Greats when they first came out, which kind of terrorized most players. But if I didn't have a single one, I was screwed most of the time.
Yeah. And one of the craziest things I think, I mean, this just, again, goes with how long the game has been out and how it's advanced, right? But it's like when you and I playing back in the day, the sort of cards that you were like so afraid of or that were powerhouses, now they're at like 3 per deck and they see no play. Like Book of Moon, Gores, Tragodia, Dark Armed. Like, I mean, the list goes on. It's just absolutely madness that a lot of these cards were like banned or limited, and now they're at 3 and they just never see the light of day.
That's a great point that you make, because I've had so many people that play the game like incredibly casually that would just play for like maybe like half a year or something. It was just something to pass the time between friends, and they would just ask me, was like, is this card still around? I'd have to tell them, yes, it's at like 3 and nobody is using it. And even Regeki, nobody's using Regeki right now. And it's like, wow, like who would have thought that
Dark Hole's at
like
3 too, I think.
Yeah, no, and barely no one's using it right now, which is amazing that you get these once powerhouse cards that were so menacing, and now they're not even scratching. And we're getting variants of those cards that would have been weaker back in the other format, but actually appear stronger in today's format. Like for instance, Storming Mirror Force. Like it puts all the cards back in the hand. I mean, we would rather just destroy them than rather put them back in the hand. But in today's Yu-Gi-Oh climate, we'd rather back in the hand because we have so many cards that activate in the graveyard. Like, no, we don't want them in the graveyard.
Yep.
You didn't want that so much in the early days of Yu-Gi-Oh. There's some cards you didn't actually want stuff in the graveyard before, but now it's like, no, we want stuff in the graveyard. It's like when I played with Dawn's Loot. I'd always like want to mill 2 off the top if I couldn't discard. Yeah, I'd absolutely do that all the time. Nowadays, if I played with Dawn's Loot, like, no, I am not milling 2 cards whatsoever.
And this is a random thought, but Donzaluk had 1,500 defense, right?
Yep.
Okay, yeah. So if you summon a tomato and rammed into it, you're losing a card. I mean, that's just craziness.
Yeah.
Just getting all nostalgic here. I mean, that's just. But yeah, I mean, even like a card like Book of Moon, right? Like that was such a big card back in the day.
Yes, it was.
Just like it was so good on offense and defense, and then if you flipped an opponent's monster, like their turn was probably going to end, or like they just couldn't do a whole lot. But now it's just like can't even book a moon a link monster, or it's just like they already popped off, and so it's just like I don't think Book of Moon will ever see the light of day. So
yeah, and I loved Book of Moon. I honestly called that card one of the best neg one cards that you could play with, because often you could turn it into like a good 1-for-1 at least, or you would set yourself up in a situation where you'd be able to take the game over with a simple Book of Moon. And nowadays we're not even seeing it be played, even though I love that card so much. I thought it was bad when I first saw it. And then after actually playing with it, I'm like, well, this card is fantastic. This is one of the best cards I've ever played with. Yeah, and it's amazing how we're seeing all these power cards like absolutely do nothing in today's format. I mean, I think like monsters should be able to go face down, but I don't know why they don't have a defense. But I think maybe that would put some balance in the game.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, even like Chaos Emperors at 3, like the original one. I mean, Blackluster Soldier. You read Blackluster, and you would think like that has to see play somewhere, but it doesn't.
And how long have we had that? Yeah, and how long has that like been
Invasion of Chaos? That was like 04, maybe 03. I don't know.
Well, just think how long that card has been banned for until it actually got brought back.
Yep.
And then nowadays it's like it's barely seeing play, if at all ever.
Yeah.
And even when it was at 3, like people maybe play like 1, maybe 2, but you wouldn't. But 3 is like is a bit of a stretch. You might see that in Burning Abyss variants, but
something like that. Yep.
If you had those power cards, it's like, do I really want to play that at 3? I don't know. And like, even though it was so menacing when it actually came out, and now it's like whatever. It's just another. It's just another card. It doesn't have any like control properties.
Yeah,
it's just okay. Whatever. I can easily stop that, because like, we're seeing the game kind of shift to: does this card have some sort of floodgate, or does it have some sort of negate power? Does it have some way to restrict your opponent?
Or if so, this is how board or
or something like then it's going to be useful, like some sort of combo piece. That's what it is nowadays. Like we don't, and then we're not seeing a lot of slow cards unless all these decks are committed to slowing down the game in its entirety. Like we're not seeing any of the the hybrid decks that can play slow or play fast. Like for instance, take Fire Fist for example. That deck has a little bit of speed, but it can also play the floodgates as well. It can play kind of both ways.
Yep.
In that sense. Now we don't even see any of those decks that can kind of play the hybrid. It's either let's play one strategy or not. Yep. And I think that's kind of taken away a little bit of that luster, because I kind of enjoyed playing decks that are similar to that. Some things that would have like a bit of a floodgate, so like just a minor floodgates. Like when I played Mermails, you had a Biscayos, that was a minor floodgate. Yep. But then they could explode like crazy. But now we don't see it. It's one way or the other.
Yeah, for sure.
It's just amazing to see how this game has evolved from, just having 20-turn games, and now the game is done in less than 5 turns.
Yep.
I don't
craziness.
Yeah, it is. And I know nowadays that you're not really like the most competitive player nowadays, but you still play. You still put videos on your YouTube channel.
Yep.
As I've seen, not a whole lot. As you used to.
Yep.
So let's dive into that now, because you almost have 4,000 subs on yours, and I know you've been Yugitubing for quite some time. You even Yugitubed like when I was trying to do Yugitube for a while, and I stopped. Like I started about a decade ago, stopped about 4 years ago, something to that nature.
Yeah.
But you're still going. So, like, tell me more about what's going on with your YouTube channel right now.
Well, so I honestly don't even know when I really stopped doing like YouTube. I mean, I do videos here and there, and I'll get to that like in a second. But kind of once I started working, I got out of college. That's kind of when I started to kind of drop out of the game a little bit. I mean, I'll be honest, like me traveling for events, having a good group of friends, like that was everything in the world to me.
Yeah.
And then also on top of that, going to events, like people saying, hey, I read your articles, or, hey, I saw your video and all this. And like, that meant the world to me. And even like, I was kind of there at the beginning of YouTube, like when YouTube started to go off with, Yugitubers, right? And it was myself, I mean, there was Robbie. I think Simply Unlucky was still there. I don't know if Jobber was there or not, but, regardless, like it was a pretty small core. I think I might have got up to like 5,000 subs, which like back then, that was pretty good.
Yeah, that was huge.
But because it's like someone might have had like 20 or 30,000, I think, like I was telling you. But nowadays, I think someone might be at like 500,000, some Yugituber. So the game has really popped off. But it's like, honestly, it's my doing. But, I kind of lost a lot of my, followers and viewers. But also now to go back to your question, like, it was the same thing for like my Pojo days, to where if I posted an article or I posted a DAC or it's like I posted a video, there's still people that view them. There's still people that reach out to me. And if I'm able to help someone, that's great. So it's kind of my way, I guess, still to stay in the game to some degree. And if I have an event near me, like I'll go there. And it's like, I'll probably never sell my cards. And it's like every now and then, I'll put some money into the game, just get some cards to beef up some old decks that I used to like. And it's like, I still like to go and travel and all that. So, it's just my way of staying into the game. So I certainly don't get the, views like I used to on YouTube, but, people do still reach out to me and, they enjoy the content. So.
Well, it's a common theme to see a lot of players way back when who were probably either high school students or maybe young adults, like maybe around 18. And then nowadays, and then fast forward about 15 years later now, like many of us have children. We have actual like full on careers. We don't quite have the time for it anymore. And, the game kind of wanes on us a little bit. So, and I think you've admitted that the game has waned on you a little bit. Like you're not into it as you were before.
Yeah.
But you still keep up with the game.
Yep. Yeah.
So what's kept you at least keeping up with the game as far as you have?
I mean, honestly, I still do, enjoy looking into things. And, for the most part, I like the rogue side of things a little more now. Like typically nowadays, like if I bring up a live stream and I see one of the big meta decks, like that typically don't turn me on. Cause, we were talking about that, like all the big board and negates and all that. But it's like someone's playing something cool that still piques my interest. I mean, again, like I picked up this game years and years ago. So it's just one sort of, something from my childhood that I never want to fully give away. It's something that I still want to stay into, to some degree. I may not do well ever again. That's fine. I mean, you never know, I guess. But it's just I just want to be in it still to some degree. So
it's really rare to see these players that we know back then kind of play into now. I mean, the Bolitos don't really play anymore. I know Lazaro Bolito doesn't play anymore. Dale, like we've kind of seen him come like in and out a bit. I haven't actually asked him yet if he's actually still trying to play or not. Like eventually, I'd love to have him as a guest.
He came back a few years ago, like when PPG had a whole bunch of like sponsored players and all that. I mean, I know they're more so kind of doing their own tournaments now, but I remember like Dale came back and like he topped something. Like
he did
years ago. Crazy.
Yeah, we both topped YCS Toronto together, and I think that at that point in time he was with PPG.
Yeah.
And, he was in there, but then he kind of disappeared again. Like, I haven't heard his name in the Yu-Gi-Oh scene, as far as I know, for the past, like, year or two. So, that's something I would love to talk to him about down the road. Lazaro doesn't play anymore. But you see players like Jeff Jones. He's still around. Yep. He's still kicking. He's probably one of the most, like, consistent and creative players that have ever graced this game. And, if there was a Yu-Gi-Oh Hall of Fame, his name is definitely 100% going to be in there. He's going to be first ballot. If we ever do that kind of thing.
Yep.
Jeff, I'd love to have you on the show, by the way, if you're out there listening. I'll have you on someday. But we don't see a lot of those names now like surface today. I mean, you don't see Philly Luna, you don't see Kirisak Pootsambat, Chris Patel, I haven't heard of him in a while.
Yep.
As far as Yu-Gi-Oh goes. Like all these players from before, like Jerry Wang. I could keep going on and listening to this players.
Yeah. Less is major, but I mean, kind of just life happens. You get older, and it's either you kind of just give it up and you move on, or you're someone like me and you kind of just hanging on by a string. I'm sure a lot of people wonder like, why do you keep doing it? It's just like, well, it's a pretty cheap hobby. I mean, there's hobbies out there that are a lot more money, so.
That can be,
out there, play to have fun and all that. So, but I mean, even someone like Jeff Jones, right? Like, he has his shop and all that. And like, I think he even had his own card game, right? So it's just like, he just moved on to something else. So you probably wouldn't see him at a Yu-Gi-Oh event anytime soon, but I'm sure he still like follows it kind of like me, but.
I still think he's actually kicking. Maybe not as much as before, but he's still in the game. He's still doing well. I think he's doing like he's working with Jesse Cotton and doing like a duelist academy as well. So he's still involved in the game.
Oh,
But
okay. I wasn't aware of that one.
yeah, he's around. That's what I mean. He's one of the few
Yeah.
veterans that I believe is still
Yeah.
quite prominent in the game. But we don't have a lot of these names nowadays that we knew from 15 years ago that are prominent now. We're seeing like the new age of Yu-Gi-Oh players coming up. Like, for example, going back to Jesse Cotton, guy's now 20 years old. He's an adult. I've seen him grow up from a kid from roughly I'm like 10 years old, and now he's growing up to be like one of the biggest players of the game. But a lot of these new players that are like the best in the game right now, they're like fresh out of high school, or maybe they're still in it and they're just barely into their undergrad at college or university. And players like you and me, we're in our 30s, we're in our early 30s now.
Yep.
Like we're up there. And like some stuff, like I have a career myself. Like I've got a girlfriend, I got my own commitments that I have to do that's outside of the game. I'm sure you have the exact same thing. Like you have your own commitments to, you have your own hobbies. You got a life outside of Yu-Gi-Oh. Everybody does. Yep. But of course, when you get older, more of it takes over your own life than it would, at least for the younger crowd, because they have more time.
Definitely.
They have more time to explore. Yeah. So we're starting to see this new age. So I really have to respect the players that have survived like 15 years ago up all the way until now, still play a high level game of Yu-Gi-Oh, and still consistent and still a household name up until now. I mean, geez, that's a long way to go.
Yeah, and I think it's nuts that, I mean, kind of to do like a little comparison here, but I think that, players nowadays, they can be younger and do better. I don't know like what it is with that, but then I'm also kind of curious, like someone like Jesse or, there's a lot of people hovering around that age, a few years from now, are they still going to play? Are they going to have a new career? Or are they just going to continue to build on their, card legacy, I guess,
Yeah, that's a very good point that you've made. We rarely saw that way back when. Like, if we saw a kid playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Like 15 years ago, odds are that you'd see like the adult would dominate them. But now that gap is definitely closed in today's meta. I've seen young kids. I've almost been beaten by several young kids. I've had some young kids beat me before, and I've seen some of these young kids get some really good plays in right now. Currently, there's a Canadian duelist who was a former Dragon Duel champion. Actually, I know two of them, and now they're starting to rise up into their own. Like Ryan Yu and John Wilkin, those are two guys that that played like Dragon Duel. That played the Dragon Duel championships. Ryan Yu's a former Dragon Duel champion.
Yeah,
and he's now and he just won like a 64-man tournament just a couple days ago, and we're starting to see these young kids even develop into their own. And I've only heard of one kid back in our day that ever had that kind of fairy tale story. I don't know if you remember this. Austin Coleman, who was 11 years old and won the U.S. national championship. That's the only story I've ever heard of a kid around that time dominate a big meta. But nowadays, we're starting to see kids just get smarter and better in this game. It's crazy.
And a friend of ours, so actually Ross, also from Pittsburgh,
Ross Snappy,
when he was like 10. But it's like, other than that, I really never heard that story. And like Austin Coleman, like that fire was lit for a couple of years. He kind of vanished himself. I don't know if he's kind of coming back now. I mean, you could check out his YouTube. He's doing a couple of videos here and there. So I think he's going to start to maybe play again. But it's like, you kind of didn't see that too much. I mean, I would think it would be people over the age of like 21, kind of like mid-20s, something like that. Like they were the ones that were topping the events. And now, I don't know what it is, something in the food or something, but they're just doing really well. So it's crazy.
Yeah, and I remember that was one of the biggest stories I've ever heard of in Yu-Gi-Oh! When Austin Coleman won the championship, won the U.S. Nats. I believe it was 2006 when it happened. And I think one of the biggest duels that happened was him versus then champion Iman Hanian, if you remember him as well.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But he was a big guy back in the day as far as being a duelist. And it was such a story to see that kid kind of evolve into what he was then. But now you're seeing these kids who have been like Dragon Duel champions and even not even that level, but just evolve into their own and just become good. Like I can't even take a 12-year-old kid lightly anymore because they'll give me some really good games.
Yep. And I'll tell you what, even to put this into like perspective more, but someone like Austin Coleman, like back then, At least I'm pretty sure. Let me know if I'm wrong on this, but there weren't even dragon duels. They had to play in the main tournaments.
You're right.
And little kid just wiping everyone in the room.
Yeah, I believe you're right too. Yeah, and we don't really see a whole lot of that like before way back in the day. And I wasn't there at that event because I was an American. I didn't really have any incentive to really go to that event. But reading the coverage that day, like the crowd apparently erupted like crazy when that kid won, and I can believe it. I mean, that's a true underdog story, but now it's starting to become more common.
Yep,
that we start to see these things. That we're starting to see these bigger players get upset more from these younger, lesser known players, and now they're starting to come into their own. It's like, okay, I can't take any kid lightly anymore. Not that you should anyway, but
And I like the idea of having dragon duels, so I actually think that was a great step in the right direction, because I could certainly see a lot of kids like maybe being scared or something that they won't do well in the big tournament. Well, you can go there, play with people your age, have fun, and get better at the game. Or if you want, you can go to the main tournament, if you think you're ready, or if you think that won't bother you. And just in general, I mean, the game's definitely it's really progressed over the years. So.
It's kind of like having like when you have like a women's division and a men's division in sports.
Yep.
It's kind of like that. Like women can like play within like their own gender. They can play that. But we've had cases where we allow women to play in men's sports, and we don't have a problem with that. Like right now, all the major sports outlets like NFL, MLB. There's no rule against women going into it. They can absolutely be welcome to play if they're good enough. Obviously, we're basing on competence, so we're not basing on gender. Then it's kind of like that kind of logic we're seeing now in Yu-Gi-Oh. We'll let the little kids be able to have their own little division, so that way they can kind of hone their skills with kids their age, get better, and then when they're ready to kind of move up, they can move on up. It's like the minors and the majors that you see in sports as well. Like, geez, sports, what a great comparison. I love sports.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's certainly missed. We'll have it back someday.
Yeah, I hear you, man. I really want my sports too, but it's amazing now we've seen this game evolve, and it's kind of been like the whole topic of this whole entire conversation we've had for this podcast is the evolution of this game going from slow, and then it's starting to get a little bit faster, you can get a little bit more creative because obviously there's a bigger card pool.
Yeah.
So you can get more creative, and now we've gone from this slow game to this incredibly fast-paced game where games are usually done within the first 5 turns. But if you ever see games that go past 5 turns in this day and age, like it becomes a major grind, and those are the kinds of games I love playing.
Yeah, I like those. Yep.
Yeah. So I know when you come into regionals, you're kind of playing more stun-like decks. I know you play a lot of heavy tribute decks when you go play like regionals. Like I see you play like Earthbound Immortals. I've seen you play like with Monarchs, and I love playing against those kinds of decks because it really throws a monkey wrench in my strategy, and I've got to think completely different on how to take these kind of decks down.
It's really a refresher, yeah. And I'll tell you what, I mean, I kind of feel like a lot of players nowadays, they'll kind of watch videos online, figure out how to do combos and like what the, side and all that. But then it's just like, well, what if someone does something to your combo? Are you going to do the right play? Or what if you play against a certain deck that's, not meta? Are you going to be able to beat it? You're going to be able to think for yourself, right? And that's kind of how I was back in the day. I always strive to be better and better. And honestly, like, it's kind of a letdown. I never ended up topping a Shonen Jump, like we were kind of talking about this. But back in the day, you had to make top 8 to make the top cut, and there was like no day 2, no extra rounds, the next day and all that. And back then, I think I got 20th at Toronto. I was using GBs with Cold Wave. I think I was Dad Return. And then I was also using the trap card that froze 2 back rows. And I was just going like Prisma, Tiger, Cat, like all that stuff.
Xingchen Hu.
Yeah, Xingzen. Yep. So that's what I mean. Someone would look at that card and be like, yeah, it sucked, but like that was really cool. So yeah, I mean, back then, I came close to topping a couple of times. I think I had like 2 or 3 like top 32s. Like in today's day and age, like that would have made the cut. But yeah. So,
and topping a Shonen Jump championship was a lot more difficult way back when.
Yeah.
Because as you said, we try to get all of day one done. Like all Swiss rounds were done on day one, and day two was just strictly the top 8 cut. And it would suck for like 1 or 2 people because you could have an X1 record and you could still not make the top 8 cut.
Yeah.
Which was awful. So every time I would go into a big event, I'm like, gotta win the first round, because typically your tiebreakers get progressively worse if you lose the first round as opposed to getting they're better if you like lose in the later round. Like I think the first round is one of the most important rounds of a tournament. You want to win that one for sure.
Yeah,
because it affects your tiebreakers.
Yeah, and kind of going back to this striving to do better, kind of lost my train of thought there before. That's why I kind of stopped. But like back then, right? Like the card pool was a lot smaller, right? And I had mentioned like how competitive the Pittsburgh area was. Like I think we only had like 2 or 3 Shonen Jump tops from our area, but it's like there were so many of us that were just knocking on the door at the last round every time. And it's just like that was a smaller card pool. So I think like back then we would probably be better prepared to face a deck that wasn't meta. But nowadays it's just like I couldn't even tell you when I last played against like Samurai, or you know what I mean, like the card pool's so much bigger. So I kind of wonder, today's players, if they played against a non-meta deck, like how would they fare? Would you know how to play against it? And that's kind of why I think I like playing those rogue decks. First of all, I don't think they don't get love. I mean, I know I'm not going to do well. I mean, you should just be using the best decks out there, best cards and all that. But I kind of feel like if I had my competitiveness from years back in my mind that I have like now, like I think like I can come up with better deck ideas and like combos nowadays for like weird decks. But if I had that competitiveness and that mind back then, I think I really would have did some damage.
So when you play with these kinds of decks at regionals nowadays, do you notice your opponents with how they have to play when you're playing with these rogue like floodgate like decks? And,
well, yes, certainly. I mean, right off the bat, if someone has to pick up your cards, I mean, that's kind of a plus in a way, because then it's just like, well, we'll see how they play against us now. So, it's definitely a curveball because people go into an event thinking, oh, I'm going to play against the top 3 or 4 decks, right? So, it's a whole different kind of strategy, and it can certainly throw people off. So,
and I see a lot nowadays where the formats have gotten incredibly diverse for the most part. Obviously, there have been formats where we've just had like one deck that's been topper, maybe 2 decks. Like I think the most recent one we've had was Orcust, for example, was like one of the best, was like the best deck at the time, and almost everybody was playing it in some form, in some variant of some form. But back then, for Teledad, for example, let's take that one, which was the Tier 0 deck, one of the best decks that was out there. Like any other deck was pretty much rendered obsolete. I always found that about 95% of the time, it was the better player won.
Oh yeah, for sure.
There was a very low luck, success rate that would actually cause the win for the lesser player.
Yeah,
it was very tough.
And that was actually my probably peak performance, because I ended up topping 7 regionals in a row during Teledad format. There was an upper deck day, so that pretty much meant that's when upper deck was sold, or Konami took over, however you want to word that, and they were giving away prize cards at tournaments. So I ended up winning one there. But I mean, certainly with Teledad, I mean, I could also see during Teledad, that's kind of when the game kind of started to change, because you first started off with just normal monsters, effect monsters, fusions, right, and rituals, and then kind of after that, then you got synchros, I believe, and that's just like, okay, well, this is kind of different, and then after that, it just continued to expand. But I mean, in the Teledad era, I mean, if you did not make the right play, you were going to get punished.
And that's exactly how I found. There was players I would always consistently beat with Teledad. I somebody who was worse off than me, but there were definitely a couple players that were better than me when I played regionals or an upper deck day, that I just couldn't beat because they were better than me. They did better. They knew the deck better than me. They were just better than me in general, and that's what happened most of the time. And I like those formats where it's usually the better player won, because when you play these kinds of games, everyone wants to be, at least if you think you're good, you want the better player won. That's how I want it to be. Yeah. It's kind of like the lower end, the casual players, they kind of don't want it that way because they want their chance to be able to win. But as a legacy player who's played this game, and I want to say I played at a fairly high level.
Yep.
With all the lists and accolades that I have under my belt.
Yeah.
I think I'm a pretty solid player.
Yep.
So I like to have that.
Sure.
I'd like to think so. I only have one YCS top, though. I haven't topped the Shonen Jump Championship. Yeah, I haven't topped the Shonen Jump Championship ever. I've been close, but I haven't actually topped it. I think I've got about 6 or 7. I think I played before it got changed to YCS. But the YCS I did top. I was
for 8. Sure, you're never gonna top one.
Yeah, no, I will definitely top a Shonen Jump. Yeah.
But
definitely not top of the Shonen Jump Championship now.
Like with Teledad, I mean, I feel like it's kind of this way with a couple of formats, but it's like I think a format will start off okay, and then eventually there was either a card released or someone discovered a card that kind of ruined it. Like a lot of people talk about GOAT format, and that there's a whole lot of like memes online talking about Xarian Universe and all that, and how that card kind of ruined things. But then also like in Teledad, people just used regular Teledad at first, but then eventually people started to use like Royal Oppression, and that kind of in a way ruined things. And then I also think like another format, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I believe it was Necros, and people are using the Dijin, the one that you can't special summon. So that kind of ruined things too.
Yep. Also, like Dragon Ruler format, Patrick Coleman introduced Vanity's Emptiness in his build. No one was running it at the time at the Nationals in Chicago, and that's what propelled him to. I think he won that event altogether. I'm pretty sure. Yeah. Yep. So that was the game breaking card for it, and then all of a sudden, Vanity's Emptiness became like one of the biggest cards of the format, and almost every single deck was running it just to shut down your opponent.
And that's all it took was just to find some sort of like combo, right? Because like for the longest time, I think Emptiness was out. No one was really using it. But then it was just like you could figure out some sort of combo with a card. So like in a way, I kind of like that. But at the same time, if there was something really unfair, then it kind of doesn't make a good back and forth game either.
Yeah, because at least when everybody knows about the card, it's a little bit more. Like it's a little bit more even at that point. Like when Necros was going into its last legs, like where it was still the top deck, but we just lost to Shin. Everybody at that point was running Emptiness, and then sometimes you would have the gentleman's agreement of both players siding it out.
Yeah,
sometimes you'd have that. I never did that. I'm like, no, I'm keeping it in. I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm just playing it. I'm playing the game like the way I want to play it right now. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah,
I'm glad I did.
Yeah. I guess you would say you'd probably want a game to be more evenly matched, right?
Yeah, you do. For the most part, no pun intended.
Yeah.
At least maybe for you.
Not at all.
Yeah, but sometimes, but I don't mind having a surprise card happen in there because I don't want to divulge anybody away from deter anybody away from creativity, because that's what it does. I mean, Jeff Jones, for example, one of the most creative professional players to play this game, has a whole bunch of tricks up his sleeve. I don't want to do that, but it is nice to kind of play games where both players just have no like inherent advantage over each other per se. It's kind of near impossible to do because everyone's skill level is different, so you can't really have that perfect level playing field, but you'd like to at least have it at points where it's level as possible. In some cases.
Yeah. I think also kind of like back in the day, I'm always going to refer to back in the day because, that's what I'm from, right? But it's like, you would be able to side certain cards that would just be able to like, I don't want to say like, I think like nowadays, right, you're siding cards to just like white back rows, right, or white monsters or stuff like that. But it's like back then, I think like you could side in like a monster, that would make your deck a little better against something. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like the techs were more there back then, but nowadays it's like you're just going to have uniform, like, removal or negation and, whatnot.
Yeah, siding is completely different now from what it is before. I mean, before, I could side in traps even when I know I was going to go second back in the day. Nowadays, every single card that I side in, it has to be live first turn in some way, shape, or form, or else that's it. I've lost the game. Yeah. Like almost all the time, unless I can make use of it first turn, I'm going to side out practically every single trap card that I play with. Like, for example, when I played Salamangreats, I sided out Salamangreat Rage and Salamangreat Roar when I know I was going second. And that's just how the game has kind of evolved into it. And then you want to put in like more spells. You want to put in more and back row removal to at least get rid of the floodgates. Like you have to plan around that now.
Yeah.
Like siding is completely different. Like I sided in for, I think one regional I was playing Mermails. I sided in Snowman Eaters.
Oh yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah,
even though I knew I was
going
and
think,
second.
wow, gonna set a monster, like you can't even do that nowadays. And it's like back then, we could side like Doom Caliber Knight, right? Or it's like or more traps, right? Because we knew the game was going to be a couple of turns back and forth. But nowadays, it's just like you set a trap now, or if you set a monster, you might die.
It's exactly that. Like I played a video game. When I set up my board on the video game and someone just sets a monster, I'm like, okay, they're done. I've got them. They're screwed. Yeah. You can't do that anymore now. You can't. It's harder to play incredibly passive nowadays. You have to be aggressive, and it's kind of steering Yu-Gi-Oh in a direction where you get all these players that think, okay, aggressive is the way to go. But then when you put them in a format where, like I said, back in Yu-Gi-Oh, you play structure decks, they're going to think, oh, let's play aggressive, and then they get punished wildly. And that's how, like, I won 2 Yu-Gi-Oh days in one weekend because I have played against so many players that weren't legacy players that didn't know how to not overextend. When this whole entire game now, it's just put all of your cards on the table. Can your opponent break it? If they can't, you win. And that's how the game is transitioned to. And like I don't know, I don't think it's a healthy way of playing the game, but we're way too far down in the rabbit hole to really get out of it, unless we completely like destroy the game and rebuild it.
I think also, like, for nowadays, right, like the sort of traps that you can use, they have to be playable when you permanents evenly matched, right? Like those are huge differences there. So
or they have some sort of beneficiary effect if they're in the graveyard of some kind. Some way that you can utilize them.
Paleozo a few years ago, I think the Eldritch do that as well.
Yep.
Where they do stuff when discarded, right? So it's like, it's just a whole different form of thinking. And, it kind of then goes back to the hand traps again, right? Like if you don't have hand traps, right? And like, let's say you did set a monster and you don't have hand traps. Well, you're not going to live. I mean, I don't know how likely, that would be, but, or even if you make a board and you don't have hand traps, they could just break yours and then just steamroll you. So it's certainly, I don't want to say partly luck, but
Yeah, and we're starting to see a lot of cards too that don't miss timing anymore. Remember, we had a lot of cards that would miss timing way back when. Nowadays, we don't really have that anymore. Like we have a lot of optional effects now that if they hit the graveyard in the middle of a chain, they'll still get their effects off, and that completely adds to the speed of the game. Where before, like let's say, like for like Cross Porter, for example, that was a card that would miss timing. Not Sagi the Dark Clown. What's Pettin the Dark Clown? That would miss timing, but nowadays we're getting so many cards that don't miss timing anymore. So when we bring back a card that can miss timing, like say Dupe Frog is a card that is commonly played that can miss timing. People are like wondering, what the hell does that mean? What does that do? Like miss timing? I've never heard of that before because we don't see any cards really nowadays that are new that miss timing, which contribute to the speed, which makes this game a whole lot faster, and thus you get these bigger combos. So there's a lot of just old stuff that doesn't really translate well into like the new age of Yu-Gi-Oh. Which again is kind of sucks, but it's nice to see that some cards kind of get there.
Yeah, it kind of sucks you can't use some old cards, but I think also at the same time, if you're trying to grow, the game, right, and people are coming in, I think the worst thing in the world, right, is for someone to not understand how their cards work. So I think in a way that is a good idea. Cards don't miss timing.
Yeah, I can understand that point of view because you don't want to introduce like these really old mechanics that existed before but don't exist now into it, and that's going to confuse a whole lot of new players, especially when it's very rare that these kind of things happen. It just kind of screws over a lot of people, at least in terms of like memory and just trying to be able to learn the game. It's like, oh well, I'm going to like use this one rule that barely ever gets used, and I'm going to exploit it on you. That I'm probably never going to use again, like for in any other situation. But it just happens that it gets crazy. I tell you. But again, this is the evolution of what Yu-Gi-Oh was before, up until now. And I played this game again since 2003. I played it consistently. I've taken a break here and there, but only because I was forced on it. I never want all these breaks I took were not because I chose to.
Yeah.
But I play this game now until then, and like I've seen this game evolve, and like holy hell, this is a completely different game from what it was then. I still like it back in the old days. I still will play like in current formats. I'll still like competitively. I'll still try to do my best. I still top regionals here and there, but it's still not easy to do.
Yeah, and I think like also I think one interesting thing, just talking about the evolution, right? But it's like back in the day when we used to have to wait for a ban list, we would always wait from like or wait for Shriek and stuff like that, right? And it's like if we got the OCG list, then that means we would get one a couple of days away.
Yeah.
And even that in itself, that's some like kind of unheard of, that we would sit there and we would get the cruddiest looking pictures of what the ban list is because it was inside of a magazine.
Yep.
And whatnot. So that in itself is kind of a forgotten, I don't want to call it an art, but a part of the game.
Yeah, because most of the time back then our lists would be the same as the OCG, but nowadays we're starting to get like a little bit of different lists now, and ban lists back then were released consistently on the day. Nowadays we're seeing no sooner than X date. We don't even know when they're going to come out now. They're starting to come out inconsistently. Like they used to come out every 6 months. Okay, we knew when it was going to come out. We could talk about it, and that's it. Nowadays, we say no sooner than like we don't even know when it's going to come out anymore. I can't even predict a single day where a ban list has even come out nowadays, as opposed to what it was before. And this was even still when Konami was doing ban lists. They would at least let you know, like the actual day. Nowadays, I don't even know anymore.
Yeah, and I don't know if anyone else kind of feels this way, but I kind of have always wanted a TCG and OCG merger with the list, because I honestly kind of feel like OCG will get to see cards or have a meta for a few months, then we eventually get it right. So it's like kind of, for example, 2 weeks from now, I think we're going to get Numeron, and I think like that's absolutely tearing up the OCG right now.
Yeah.
So it's kind of just like, well, I think if it was like unified, and then if there was a problem, you could hit it. But then if it's a problem, right, like we're only just getting it, they've had it, right? And I kind of think about it in that way. And then also it's kind of weird that they get sets way before us, and I kind of have always wanted that unified. It'd be nice to have the same rarities too. I mean, especially back in the day, there was a lot of cards that used to be rare and common over in the OCG, and then it would be secret rare here, and that would be quite painful. But I mean, that's something I kind of always kind of wanted, because I remember even like Sky Striker was so big. I mean, it still tops like in the OCG, but it's like it was big for so long, just dominating, and then it's just like, there's going to be a storm coming in the TCG. It's going to take over, and then it's like finally got it, and then it's like then we had to deal with it for a year or whatever, So I wouldn't mind some unity there, but I don't know what the restrictions are on that or why you can't do that, but that'd be something cool.
Yeah, I'm not sure why that is myself. Why they haven't decided to unify it. I mean, they do get like one set earlier than us. Yeah, and you're right. They do get get exclusives, but we're starting to get exclusives now too. It's happening. It's been happening for a while. Like Grandmaster of the Samurai, that was one of the exclusives that the TCG had for a while before OCG happened. So at least there's a bit of role reversal on that regards. Like we got Dangers, they didn't have Dangers for a while. Either. So we're seeing that, but I don't know. There's just some cards that OCG has had, and if we got them, I feel like the meta would just be way too chaotic. Like if we had Summon Sorceress and Needle Fiber in the same format, I feel like that would be a chaotic, and the game would go to hell if that were to happen.
That one probably benefited us. Yeah, you're right on that.
Yeah, so that's why I'm okay with not quite syncing up with Japan, because Japan's meta is absolutely crazy. But at the same time, they can also be very balanced as well too. It's one of those like it's case by case, format by format.
Yeah,
I can't really be. It's not consistent, so it's hard to tell. Sometimes Japan's better, sometimes we're better.
Yeah. There's a lot of things you always just think about and think like, what if? Because then, like, also back to the Needle Fiber and like Summon Sorceress, it's like if we would have had Needle Fiber a little like sooner, maybe like same time OCG had, like they would have took care of it by now. But now it's just like it's absolutely wrecking everything right now.
Yeah, I found that to be kind of poor on Konami's part, because at least when Upper Deck was running the game, they would pre-restrict certain cards because they knew that there would be like there'd be a big like power grab, and that's not what we wanted. But with Konami, you don't see like cards that appear broken. They just leave it at 3 and just let the card run rampant until like maybe a format or two later. It's like, okay, now we're finally going to restrict it.
Yeah.
I think that's a problem as well that Konami has with at least like limiting or restricting cards. I can't remember the last time Konami's done that.
Yeah, and people would know better than me, right? But it's like, we definitely knew needle fiber was coming, right? But it's just like, even if they would have put that to 1, I'm not saying that solves anything, but at least that's saying that you're aware of the problem and you're doing something with it, as opposed to saying, here's 3, have at it.
Yeah, and that's a very good
better
point.
Than nothing, but yeah.
Yeah, it's a very good point that they're making right now. At least it shows that Konami has at least some awareness of what's going on with the game, as opposed to just here you go, have fun, and then kind of see everything kind of burn a bit with these FTKs, OTKs, and like these decks just like going to hell and destroying everybody on the first turn. It's like we can't really play the game if you keep power creeping these cards like that and not like restricting them in some way, shape, or form. It's just no. Have this fun card that's like worth $100+ and go nuts.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious. I mean, kind of another thing thinking here with Konami, but I'm just wondering if they do look at the results of these online tournaments and if that impacts them as well. And I kind of always was on TCG may not always have the ability to touch any cards, right? Because in the end, right, it is owned by Konami of Japan, right? Or someone, right? But it's just like, I'm kind of hoping that, they kind of see the problems going on right now. It's cool that the game has evolved, right? But then it's just like, well, now we're going to be getting Numeron too, and then we're going to be getting Dragma next month, and it's just like things are really going to explode. We're going to get that Red Eyes Dragoon or whatever his name is. Like, I'm aware of cards and sets. I mean, I still like to, follow up on things and know what's coming and all that, but I'm just hoping that, maybe we could do some things. But I don't know. It kind of seems like, we're just going to get whatever cards and then, have some fun with it. If you would even call that fun, probably fun to someone out there. But, then after a while, they'll hit it. But then also, I kind of feel like instead of actually hitting a problem card, they hit the other cards that kind of like go into something, right? Instead of just going right for the throat.
I've seen Konami at least do that a little bit more now that they're also getting a little bit of foresight with taking out some cards that they know will be a problem in the future. Like, for instance, Glow Up Bulb got the axe. So, and that was probably because of needle fiber coming out. So at least they're having some foresight beforehand. But I think nowadays the players want some more transparency between Konami and their player base. Like, for example, Wizards of the Coast and Magic, every time they release a new ban list, they at least go out and explain why this is.
Yeah,
we don't get that with Konami at all.
And so actually, I don't know if this was Konami or Upper Deck, but somebody at some point did post a list and they explained the reasons. I swear I'm not imagining that, but it was just for one ban list and they kind of explained things. And I was just like, that's great. Like, you're telling us what you're thinking, why you did something, right? Like, and I actually really like that on Duel Links, if you ever play Duel Links at all, but they kind of give reasons and they say, oh, this card makes things unfair, or like this skill, it wasn't allowing people to play, or, they just made alterations to make it less broken. And, I respect that because it's like, I kind of want to know what you're thinking. And there's no harm in that.
Yeah, I don't play Duel Links, but I definitely see that on other people's posts, and I think that's a good step that Konami is taking towards Duel Links, but I would definitely love to see that in the actual card game itself, so at least players can, have a better sense of providing feedback to Konami to kind of make the game a little bit better. Because, we do have Jerome McHale on the other end of things, who he was another mod on Pojo, and he would help out, and he used to play a bunch too, and he's transitioned over now into working for Konami. But you go ahead.
Oh no, I was going to say, and if you forgot, he actually went to my locals in Pittsburgh. So that's
Oh,
something
I
a lot
didn't
of
know.
people would not know. So
Oh, I didn't know that.
that was probably past your time. So I know
Right.
that he even went to, college around here, and then, he was really big in the judging, as you know, right? And then just
Oh, okay.
eventually then he moved out to California, and then, that was his career in life, and that's that. But
Oh, I didn't know that. That's actually fascinating to
yep.
know. But I
Yep.
see this a lot with like the fighting game community, that the companies would start to take in like professional players to actually go in and take their input on the game to kind of get a player's perspective. But
Yeah.
we don't get a whole lot of that in the Yu-Gi-Oh scene, as far as I know. It's just Jerome McHale is the only person I can think of offhand that has made that transition from like being a very good
Yeah.
player, because he's topped an event before, he's topped a Shonen Jump before, and
Yeah.
making that transition over now into like now he's working with R&D department. And you don't see you don't hear about a lot of like good staff that
Yeah.
were like formerly like top players in Yu-Gi-Oh. It's just something you don't see anymore. I mean, correct me if
Yeah.
I'm wrong. I'd love to be proven wrong.
No, I mean, I think that's right. But I also think that, kind of in our world, we may think that something's a problem, but, I guess maybe we don't own the rights or something to that, right? And there could be a lot of back and forth saying, yeah, well, you want this. Well, how about this instead?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, kind of in general, I would love to hear like input, and I would love for Konami to listen to the players, especially like these big name players you were talking about in today's day, day and age and all that. I think they would have great input on that. But I'm kind of curious. It's just like, well, let's say the next ban list, right? Like, let's say, I'm not even sure if this is maybe the most accurate thing to say, but let's say that they ban Jet Synchron. That's a card I hear about a whole lot,
Yep.
right? And it's a big card for Needle Fiber. But then it's just like, well, instead of just touching Needle Fiber, right? Then it's like, well, first you touch Glow. Well, now you touch Jet Synchron. Then maybe you'll touch that Mecha Phantom Beasto Lion or
Yep.
whatever, right? And it's just like, I want to hear your thought process on that, because it's just, that's kind of the example I meant. Like, instead of just going right for the throat, you're doing other things. And then it's just, I think that problem's still going to be there, and people are going to find other ways to, break it.
Yeah, and I'd love for our viewers who are tuning into this, I'd love to know what your thoughts about having some more transparency between the player base and Konami themselves. If you think that they're doing, if they're good right now, or if you think that there should be more transparency or less transparency. I'd love to find out everyone else's opinions on that. So definitely drop a comment below. But we're starting to get past to our time, friend. So I mean, it was great having you on board. We've gone through,
Yeah, you as well.
we've gone through the evolution of how the game was before and how it was then. And like I said, you've been a prominent figure in how the game was before. Maybe not so much in like the Shonen Jump circuit, but I mean, you've topped a lot of regionals then. We've both been moderators on Pojo.com, which again, arguably the biggest forum there. So we've seen it all happen right before our eyes. And we've played roughly at the same time up until now. And it's kind of amazing to see this game kind of follow through. I mean, that's what happens with most of these games that last long.
Yeah.
It really has.
And I'm sure a lot of people listening to this right now, like, they probably never even heard of Pojo, or they never even heard of me, right? But it's just, I kind of once was, a figure and, whatnot of the game. So it just kind of goes to show again, that people can stay in the game a while, or, kind of just move on and whatnot. And then kind of just with anything, right, you'll always have new people coming in, old people leaving, and whatnot. But I mean, I would say it looks like Konami's doing a lot of right stuff, because you don't just go from having 200-300 person tournaments back in the day to upwards to 4,000, like somewhere like Cali and all that. And it's like, I think if people are really upset with what they were doing, then I think that they wouldn't go. So the fact that the game continues to grow, I think that they're doing some, good things. And that's great that we have, a lot of young minds in the game, and, hopefully they can motivate, some other younger people and keep this game going.
Yeah, I think that's an absolutely fantastic point. Regionals have been very enjoyable, even in these like weird fast formats, because we're seeing all these players come out, and that's what you want, right? You don't want to go to a local that has like 5-6 people. You want to go to a local that has like 20-30 people. And I've seen that evolve in my own card shop as well. I've seen it go from like 8 people up to like I'm getting like 20-30 people local, and like in a town of like 87,000. So it's fantastic to see that kind of thing. And And I think you make a very good point on, Konami had to be doing something right if we're seeing attendance go up, and this game is kind of evolving to what it is now. So I like what you said there.
Yeah. I think also just, in the end, I just wish nothing but the best for, all the areas and whatnot. Like, I mean, even though, Konami is doing part of it to grow the game, I think also, kind of the local shops, right? Like, you got to get your name out there, like grow your audience, right?
Yeah.
Grow your tournaments, right? And then just from there, that's, the only way you can get bigger and, get better, I guess, too. So.
And it's definitely nice to see these, like local shops kind of grow like this in attendance too, because that's always good for business.
Oh, yeah,
and you want to see these local shops thrive. Like I have 2 local stores in my town now of 87,000 people, and before almost always there just used to be one, and it's just nice to see that I can go to 2 different places. I work at one of them, which is nice, but just having that availability.
Yeah. And I still say, like, I'm not basing this off anything, just using logic, but I honestly feel like there's a lot more players out there or people that collect the cards, but it's just they don't know where to go, or they don't know that there's a competitive scene, or it's just maybe there's people that just watch the shows and that's how they like play and like collect, right? But there's a whole different realm or world to this game, and you can take it to a whole different level if you choose to.
And that was a really good resource for me because I travel out of town a lot and I love playing at several different kinds of locals. I mean, that's how I found out the locals in Pittsburgh, like talking to you, and then I would also look up online. So it was a great resource for me to be able to travel all over the place and play at these different places. So it's really nice to see these places grow, and at least we know that the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Is still growing because, again, as you mentioned, the population and the attendance has been rising over the years, which is nice to see. I mean, again, I'd rather have more people than less people at a tournament.
Yeah, I definitely just really hope right now, just with this pandemic and all that, because we're all wondering, like, well, there may be some areas that do like locals, but it's just like the things that they're having to do, it's just awful. And I just hope that we come to a good resolution here, because even I was thinking, I'm like, if I go to a regional or YCS, are you going to space out the tables, put up plexiglass, have a mask on, keep 6 feet apart? Like, can we like pre-register maybe to kind of help things? And I think you and I both agree that Yu-Gi-Oh players, I mean, not all of them, but some they're pretty dirty, they don't like to shower and all that. So then when you hear about a pandemic, it's just like, that's not a good mixture. I don't feel too good about the future a little bit, but I hope for nothing but the best, and hopefully we find a solution to things going on right now and we can continue to grow the game.
Well, I'm hoping that's going to be one positive that comes out of this pandemic, is we got a little bit more sanitation standards within our players, because it's definitely a stereotype, but we made it for a reason. It's in the rule book now that you can not have somebody because they're not quite good at the hygiene. But nonetheless, I have Jeffrey Lang here, Senior Blanco 88 on YouTube. He's got 4K subs. I will put the link down below in our description if you want to check out his channel. Jeff, thanks so much for being here with me again, kind of discussing.
Thank you for the invite.
Evolution of the game and just kind of taking me back on a time travel. Any shout outs you want to give before we head out?
Yeah, I mean, not really in particular. I mean, like I said, like, I don't really know that many people that play anymore. I mean, certainly to you. And, you're more than welcome to, if you want to send me this podcast, I'll post it on my channel. I'll definitely be sharing it up on Facebook, and hopefully, some people listen to this and, get nostalgic or kind of get an idea of how things used to be and how things have, evolved. But yeah, that's really it. I don't like go to locals or anything anymore. So that's why I don't, kind of have any shout outs or anything. But yeah, I'm just happy that you're doing these podcasts, because there's really no one out there that's doing that right now. So I hope that this really, takes off for you and becomes a thing. So
that's what I'm hoping, man. The first full-fledged journalist to actually do a Yu-Gi-Oh podcast, and that's the goal here. I'm hoping to get big. I really appreciate that. This is Jeffrey Lang, Senior Blanco 88 on YouTube. Subscribe to him. Links below. Thank you for joining us. This is week number 3 for the Gate Expectations podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Hopefully next week I'll be bringing another guest who always might call himself the best. This is the Gate Expectations podcast. Thank you so much for joining in. Don't forget to like and subscribe. For more information, check out the Gate Expectations podcast on YouTube, Facebook, Patreon, Twitter, and Spotify.